In a land once ruled by Rome, unity shattered and darkness fell. From the ashes of betrayal to the gates of Ravenna. One man carried the fate of an empire. The legend returns. The empire's last hope, or its final casualty. The Roman army, once a disciplined machine, has split into fractured allegiances and private chains of command. Messages are sent, urgency escalates. Belisarius pleads with Narses to act, to make John obey, but the bureaucratic delay proves fatal. By the time Narses is convinced, it's too late. Inside Milan, the defenders can hold no longer. Their commander calls for a hero's last stand, but his men refuse. They negotiate surrender, not for honor, but for survival. But there is no mercy. The Goths and Burgundians slaughter every male they can find, soldier or civilian. The city runs red. Women and children are enslaved and handed over to the Burgundians. Milan, once imperial, is gutted, looted, and razed. When news of Milan's fall reaches the Roman command, the horror is not just military, it is existential. One of the greatest cities in Italy, a voice whispers, razed to the ground, and it fell not to the enemy, but to Roman division. The consequences are immediate. Justinian, furious and humiliated, recalls Narses to Constantinople. There will be no more dual commands, no more divided loyalties. Belisarius is once again supreme commander in Italy. But the cost of unity came too late for Milan, and the scars, political and human, will not heal easily. Could Milan have been saved if the Roman army had been united? Was Narses' recall a just response, or scapegoating for a broken system? Share your thoughts below. History remembers those who question it. After the horror of Milan, the Eastern Roman Empire acted swiftly. Narses was recalled to Constantinople. His influence and his rivalry with Belisarius had helped fracture the army, paralyze decision-making, and cost one of Italy's greatest cities. Now there would be no more divided command. Belisarius was once again in full control, but the damage had already been done, not just politically, but physically, spiritually, and agriculturally. For nearly 2 years, northern Italy had been a battlefield. Crops went unharvested, livestock were slaughtered or stolen, and entire regions were stripped bare by both armies. What couldn't be taken was burned. Villages were emptied, roads were littered with abandoned wagons and the bones of the dead. Disease followed famine. Starving peasants scavenged the remains of battlefields for anything edible. Belisarius's campaigns continued, but the backdrop had changed. The war was no longer a chess match between empires. It was a slow march through a dying land. Procopius, who witnessed this firsthand, left one of the most haunting accounts of the aftermath in Picenum, a region ravaged by the war. He estimates over 50,000 deaths by starvation in that province alone. I will now tell of the appearance they acquired and how they died, for I was an eyewitness. All of them first became lean and pale, for the flesh lacking nourishment, turned on itself, to use the old expression. As the evil developed, all moisture left them, and the skin became so dry that it resembled leather more than anything else. They changed from a livid to a black color, whereupon they came to resemble burned-up torches. Their faces always wore an expression of amazement and a dreadful sort of insane stare. People began dying alone, unburied, their homes filled with the dead. Rumors of cannibalism began to circulate. The living envied the dead. Even Theodebert, the king of the Franks, who had supported the Gothic cause, led a massive army across the Alps to seize Italian territory during the chaos. But when he arrived in the Po Valley, he found nothing. No food, no forage, only death and disease. His men, weakened by dysentery and starvation, began dying by the hundreds. He withdrew in defeat without fighting a single battle. Even the enemy recognized that Italy, once the crown jewel of the empire, had been transformed into a graveyard. Meanwhile, Belisarius pressed on with the campaign, targeting Faesulae and Auximum, two major Gothic strongholds. Auximum, in particular, was nearly impregnable. Roman forces could not take it by storm. The only option was to starve it into submission. Gothic foraging parties clashed with Roman skirmishers daily in the surrounding hills. The countryside that had once fed empires was now a battleground for bread. And yet, even amid the chaos, betrayal found a way in. Belisarius learned that a traitor among his own ranks had been sending secret messages to the Goth garrison in Auximum, urging them to hold out, promising reinforcements from Vitiges. When the traitor was caught, Belisarius turned him over to his unit. They burned him alive within sight of the walls, a brutal message to the defenders. Eventually, both Faesulae and Auximum surrendered, not from defeat, but from hunger. Belisarius, to his credit, offered generous terms to the survivors, but Italy would not recover so easily. Even with the Gothic front collapsing, even with the final prize of Ravenna within reach, the legacy of the campaign was clear. Victory had come at a devastating price. Do you think the Roman Empire underestimated the true cost of reconquest? Could Belisarius have avoided this humanitarian disaster, or was it inevitable in war? Let us know your thoughts below. History is written by its survivors, but understood by its witnesses. The road to Ravenna, the Ostrogothic capital, had been long and brutal. But by late 539 AD, Belisarius stood at its gates, not only with an army, but with the weight of Italy's fate in his hands. The city was well defended, surrounded by marshes, shoals, and a lagoon, and protected by formidable 9-meter-high brick walls. Yet the most critical blows were not delivered by siege engines, but by calculated strategy and psychological warfare. Belisarius didn't rush the city. Instead, he tightened a noose. He severed grain shipments on the Po River, blockaded the coast, and launched diversionary attacks across multiple fronts. A suspicious fire in the city granaries accelerated desperation. The people of Ravenna began to starve before a single wall had been breached. Meanwhile, hope of Gothic relief faded. A force under King Vitigis's nephew, Urias, was heading toward the city. But when his troops learned that major Gothic strongholds had already surrendered, they abandoned the campaign. Urias returned home in defeat, cornered and isolated, Vitiges agreed to negotiate. Imperial envoys arrived from Constantinople with terms that, to Belisarius, were shockingly generous, allowing the Goths to retain their autonomy under Eastern Roman suzerainty. Belisarius refused to sign. He knew he was close to total victory, and suspected the Goths would not accept the treaty in good faith either. Instead, something remarkable happened. A group of Gothic nobles, bypassing Vitiges, came to Belisarius with a secret proposal. They would make him emperor of the West, if only he would guarantee their safety. It was the ultimate temptation. A general adored by his soldiers, already hailed in triumph across the empire, now offered a throne, the same imperial purple once worn by Caesar and Augustus. Belisarius accepted, or appeared to. He swore an oath, but notably not to rule, only that no harm would come to the Goths if they surrendered. Later, in Vitiges' presence, he repeated a similar vow, never declaring allegiance to the crown they offered. The trap was set. Ravenna's gates opened. The city fell without bloodshed. The Roman army entered in full discipline. No looting, no chaos. Belisarius swiftly delivered food to the starving city. Then, in a remarkable gesture, he allowed the Goth warriors, who outnumbered his own men, to return home. There was no betrayal, only mercy and closure. But when the days passed with no coronation, the Goths realized the truth. Belisarius had deceived them, not out of ambition, but to end the war swiftly without further ruin. He would later be recalled to Constantinople, bringing Vitiges as a captive and the Gothic treasury in tow. Belisarius had no intention to betray his emperor, a chronicler would write, but he let them believe he might, to end the war. It was not a crown of gold that defined Belisarius, but one of restraint. In a world of betrayal and ambition, he chose loyalty, even at the cost of greatness. If you were in Belisarius's place, would you have accepted the crown? Is mercy a form of strength or weakness in the eyes of history? Leave your thoughts below. The line between glory and betrayal is often a matter of perspective. The banners of Ravenna had barely fallen when new clouds began to gather on the empire's eastern horizon. Belisarius, the man who had restored Rome's heartland to imperial rule, was summoned home, but not for celebration, not for rest. The emperor had urgent need once more. Far from Italy, in the east, a new war had begun. Months earlier, in a final act of defiance, King Vitiges of the Goths had dispatched 2 secret envoys across the empire's edge, deep into Sasanian Persia. Their message reached King Khosrow I, a ruler already watching Rome's western campaigns with growing interest and growing impatience. With the eastern Roman frontier stripped of its best troops, all drawn west for Justinian's reconquests, the time had come for Khosrow to strike, and he struck hard. His target was nothing less than Antioch, jewel of the Near East, second city of the empire. Its fall would shake the Roman world, and it was already under threat. For Justinian, the moment of decision was clear. He had only one answer, only one man capable of matching Persian ambition with Roman brilliance: Belisarius. The general who had crushed the Vandals, broken the siege of Rome, and taken Ravenna with cunning and honor, now stood between the East and annihilation. Only one man could save the East. Justinian knew who it had to be: Belisarius. What would you do if you were Belisarius? Return to war again, or refuse and rest at last? Was Justinian right to rely so heavily on a single man? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you believe leadership is tested not in conquest, but in restraint, like, share, and subscribe. And join us next time as the war spreads to the deserts and palaces of the East.